Secret friends, unite!
Hey, Secret Friends Nation. Welcome back to Oops All Thunderdome, our topic show. This is episode 561. We've been off for a little bit because I was on vacation, but now I'm back at it. And we'll be going on vacation again. But fortunately, this show will stay uninterrupted. I'm recording an episode ahead. But regardless, I'm excited to be back. I am joined by one of my regular collaborators, the guy I usually talk comics with, Mr. Kurt Krug. Kurt, happy Sunday afternoon. How you doing?
Doing good. Happy Ides of March.
Ides of March. Oh, we're dating ourselves. Good thing that this is not the episode we're recording in because we'd be doing a little fakery. But no, great to be back. We are getting into new content season. This is going to be our second Marvel show of the year because we've had Wonder Man, which we enjoyed and we've talked about on this program. But we're getting into the second season of Daredevil Born Again, which is the second Daredevil series, but the first one that's been produced by Disney/Marvel Studios in its current incarnation. So we're going to get into that. We're going to give you a recap of the first season, get you ready for it if you've missed it. The beauty of this is obviously available on Disney Plus or on Hulu, which is kind of congealing into one service as we speak throughout this year. That'll what's be happening, but if you're somebody that followed the Star Wars or the Marvel television series, you probably already have it. So we're going to get into that in a hot second. But first, as always, got to do a little bit of paying the bills. Kurt is one of the proud members of our Secret Friends Unite Patreon over at patreon.com/secretfriendsunite. He always keeps me on track to let me know when our interview segments drop. By saying, hey, I really enjoyed blah, blah, blah. So I know that they actually dropped. No, I do keep track of it. But we do have a lot of exclusive programming over there. We've been doing our Patreon for about 3 years. So it's the place to find all of our stuff, including awesome interviews, talks about Star Wars and Star Trek, etc. We've also got some exclusive programs over there, including a Bad Movies podcast that I do with my wife, April, and our Facts of Geek Life show, where my regular co-host, Peter, and I are winding down Ron Moore's Battlestar Galactica. This is the way it works. Your first week is for free. You can sign up for the Patreon for free just to keep track of what we're dropping. I'd love to have some people do that because it's a great way to kind of sample what we have available. So I would say patreon.com/secretfriendsunite. Just sign up. Give me no money. But if you do sign up to listen to programming, your first week is free. It's half off your first month, and they can stay on board for as little as $2 a month. So we would absolutely love to have you there. Okay. Let's talk about this program. Little background. Now, Kurt and I are both comic guys. If you listen to this podcast, this show in particular, we've done several segments when we've been talking about comic books. And you and I both got started. Kurt, you and I are about the same age. We started reading Marvel Comics in the 1980s. Was Daredevil a comic you regularly followed?
On and off.
Okay.
When I was a little kid, and my mom got me a bunch of comics to shut me up.
Right.
One of them was Daredevil 183 by Frank Miller.
Right.
Who rejuvenated that book. It was him fighting this guy called the Punisher.
Oh, yeah. That's one of the repro covers I have on the wall in my office. You've seen it, my little hodgepodge of different comic covers I have.
And as a kid, Frank's stuff was hard to follow. I was a kid. It was very film noirish. It had a hard-boiled feel.
Yeah.
As a kid, I didn't appreciate it the way I would as an adult.
Sure. Oh, absolutely. That's, it's kind of funny in some ways, like the original Star Trek is like that. That's just something that Leonard Nimoy said years and years ago. He said it's applicable to kids because there's lots of parts of like the tribbles or whatever, like there's stuff people can enjoy. But when you go back and watch it as an adult, there are like really deep layered messages that you can appreciate that might have gone over your head in the first place. So that your statement kind of reminds me of that. So yeah, I myself never followed Daredevil. Like I guess my only real familiarity with him would have been, Frank Miller wrote an early couple of issues of Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man that Daredevil guested. I think it was issue 26 and 27, where Spidey lost his sight. They were fighting I don't know, Lightstorm or some villain that you just don't know anything at all about. But that still didn't seem like heavy, but that was probably kind of how I learned a little bit about the character. Maybe I saw him in one of the early like Marvel cartoons or something, but I didn't have a ton of familiarity. I certainly didn't understand that he was this grim and gritty, like very Tim Burton-esque Batman-ish kind of character where he was
not at that point. Not
Yeah.
at that point. He was more of the swashbuckling hero in the vein of Errol Flynn.
Right.
He's in many ways a poor man's Spidey.
Okay.
And he was even on the verge of cancellation.
Spidey was a poor man's Spidey because he was so poor. But yeah.
Bad.
Yeah.
E.T. was on the verge of cancellation until Frank Miller took over the book.
Wow. And it's funny because you say it's on the verge of cancellation, but that run was in the 1980s where Daredevil had been around for 20 years. So it's like, it's a long cancellation. I wish they took that long to cancel the original Star Trek instead of 3 years. You could, but again, it's a lot cheaper to produce a comic book. But anyway, we're in the weeds. Let's move forward. Let's talk about this show. We're going to talk about kind of some of our highs and low points of the season. It aired about a year ago. Again, we're recording this in March of 2026. So it was around March-ish of 2025. We got the first season. Yes, the first season, based upon Marvel Comics Daredevil, sees his blind lawyer and former vigilante Matt Murdock's fight for justice, putting him on a collision course with former mob boss Wilson Fisk, aka the Kingpin, aka a Spider-Man character, but we don't need to talk about that, who was elected mayor of New York City, which also happens in the comics. This is set in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and shares continuity with the film and television series of that franchise, which of course we'll touch upon exactly what that means as well. Born Again is a revival and continuation of the Marvel television and Netflix Daredevil, which ran from 2015 to 2018 over on Netflix. This, as I mentioned, produced by Marvel Studios under the Marvel Television label. Charlie Cox returns, reprising his role as Matt Murdock / Daredevil. And he stars alongside Vincent D'Onofrio as Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin, who you probably have talked to him as well, but I met him at our local show here in Grand Rapids a couple of years ago. What a nice guy. Super comfortable guy to talk to, particularly any actor, I'm sure, as you know, because we've interviewed millions of them. When you say, hey, I love your stuff, you're usually going to get a pretty good follow-up, except for one actor I talked to at Motor City Comic-Con last year, who shall remain nameless, who did not give me a nice response when I said that. And I was like, well, I'm never watching your shit ever again. Margarita Levenitha, Deborah Ann Wool, Eldon Henson, and a lot of other names I won't read, with the exception of Michael Gandolfini, who is the son of the late James Gandolfini, of course, from The Sopranos. John Bernthal as the Punisher, returning, are all also parts of the cast. Again, the show aired on Disney Plus March 4 of 2025 with 2 episodes, with 7 episodes to follow through April, noted as Phase 5 of the MCU. The season received generally positive reviews from critics who highlighted the character-driven storytelling and performances, particularly those of Cox and D'Onofrio, but had mixed thoughts when comparing it to the original Daredevil series, and I definitely have some thoughts about that. So, Kurt, as I was telling you, the format of this is we're not going to beleaguer every single solitary second of 9 episodes of the show because we'd be on here for a long time. We're going to talk some favorite moments, some less favorite moments, missed opportunities, things that you think they could have done better, what you are hoping to see in season 2, and then we'll give it an overall big score. So I will let you kick it off. Talk to me about some of your favorite moments of season 1 of Daredevil Born Again.
I would have to say the mystery of who Adam was.
Mm-hmm.
The guy Fisk had locked up in his secret little room that he later beat up. Enjoyed that. And his wife, Vanessa, so prim and proper, but she's really not. She's no Shrinking Violet.
No doubt about it.
And
ruthless.
Yes, it just gives her a lot of complexity because she's got, when we first meet Vanessa, she's this prim and proper woman. And then she falls for this mob boss. And look at what it's done.
Right. Right. Yeah. You become what you're beholden. You just kind of, she kind of falls right in with it because, I mean, this was not the first appearance of Wilson Fisk in the MCU proper. That happened in the Hawkeye series and then was followed up in the Echo series. So those happened within the last several years. Both great series. And again, available on Disney Plus. I think Disney Plus also absorbed the original run of Daredevil, if I'm not mistaken. I feel like I've seen it there. Yeah, so you can kind of check that out again and again. We won't dig super deep into that, but it is there to be found. Yeah, and but he had been put away in jail, and then he comes back and becomes mayor, which the parallels to a felon assuming high office are a little sharp right now. We don't need to get too much into that because we don't totally steer clear of politics in these pods, but we do touch upon some things that are glaringly obvious. But yeah, I would say this season is so engaging. And, with as much content as we all absorb these days, because there's so much out there, I remember very little about what Netflix did with any of these characters because they had this show, they had a show around Luke Cage, they had a show around Jessica Jones, so I'll touch on Jessica Jones a little bit later, Daredevil, Iron Fist, which is much better to forget. They put them all together in a team called the Defenders. I just remember so very little about it because it's not super memorable. It's not like I watched it, and I don't know about you, and I was like, oh my God, I got to buy these on DVD or I got to go back and watch these 50 times. You know what I mean? Just, no. I don't know that I've seen any of it. The Punisher had his own show. Yeah. What'd you say? Say it again.
The same way. It's like, oh, this is cool. And yeah, it was good to see them on the small screen, but some of them just didn't land correctly.
Right.
Iron Fist and his whining being the chief among them. I thought DD was the best of the bunch, a little too dark at points.
Right. Well, literally, it's, one of my bigger complaints of any show in the modern era is they have to watch everything at night with the lights off because you just can't see what's going on. Star Trek is a definite culprit of that. Have you noticed that? And it was really stark in that last season of Picard, right at the end when they revived the old Enterprise D and they had the lights on full. And then you go back to the other ships and everything is super dark. It's like, who's not paying the light bill on this ship? You know what I mean? But I mean, that's a huge trend in all of media now. Everything's got to be dark, literally and figuratively. But yeah, I got soaked up in the show so much, and they don't make you have to be steeped in what happened before. Now there are little callbacks, and that's what kind of makes the fluidity of the canon of it kind of interesting. And it reminds me, and again, I keep going back to Star Trek, but that's the space I live in. There was an animated Star Trek in the early 1970s. A lot of people had mixed feelings about it, but Gene Roddenberry himself said, well, I don't consider the animated series to be canonical. I don't consider it to be quote unquote real. Yet more modern shows, and even going back to things that are less modern, have kind of pulled pieces out of it and dropped it into what's considered canon. And that's kind of, they do a little bit of that here, like with the young woman BB, who is related to Ben Ulrich or Ben Urich, who is a character in the Daredevil series that Fisk had killed. And this young lady is aware of that, but she's playing it very coy in her reporting and trying to goad him along to reveal things. So yeah, I found this so much better written and so much more engaging. So I love seeing the White Tiger character. Again, you're stealing that from Spider-Man. How dare you? Even gave him a costume that wasn't super accurate, but you got to remember it's a character from the 70s that he just wear a white body sock with an amulet around his neck and a mask. Now this character did not seem to be powered because he's just straight up shot in the head and killed. Where the character, and again, I'm talking about that same run of early Spectacular Spider-Man, had like a mystical amulet that gave him protective powers and stuff. So but again, this show and this kind of corner of the MCU really keeps themselves out of powers largely, although they made it kind of obvious that Fisk can, get shot in the face and be okay, or he can get hit by a car and be okay. Because you remember kind of the end of Hawkeye where Kate Bishop is shooting him with arrows and nothing's slowing him down. And then he gets hit by a car that Verna Farmiga drives a car into him. So it's kind of not super clear, what kind of abilities he has, you know what I mean? But it's kind of okay. It's not like it really, really ruins anything. anything
must
form
be his
aims.
flab serving as some type of body armor.
Insulation.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they always say. Even though the character has noticeably lost weight than his bigger appearance, but yeah, that was always back in the old days. Written by Stan Lee, because I think Kingpin was introduced in ASM 50, so that's the late 1960s. He always used to talk about like people think I'm fat, but it's all muscle, like in the very heavy-handed Stan Lee way of saying things. You know how it is. I absolutely love the John Bernthal coming back as the Punisher. Oh my God, the guy I'm a huge fan of his, going back to my first real exposure to him as Deputy Shane Walsh in the first 2 seasons of The Walking Dead. Oh my God, what a great character. He walks the line of being, he's your best friend, but he's also a psycho. Then he's sleeping with your wife. Now he's going to kill you so that he can keep sleeping with your wife, which was the Shane character. But wow, I mean, what about you? Do you think this is the best Punisher we've seen?
Yes,
I mean, we've had 3 actors play the Punisher, maybe 4, 3, I think.
4, you had Dolph Lundgren,
Right.
you had Thomas Jane and Ray Stevenson.
Oh God, that Punisher War Journal movie. And you know what? Rest in peace, Ray Stevenson, because you were great. It just was not a great film.
None of those Punisher movies were good.
No, God,
He is
no.
best served as a foil to
Right.
these good guys, the like Spidey and DD.
Right.
Foil to them, the anti-hero, giving him
Right.
his own show. It's problematical because he can be his own villain in his own show.
That's very true. That's solid. I never thought about that way. But yeah, you're right. He just doesn't work. It's the same way that Boba Fett didn't work having his own show.
Yeah.
Because there was no central drive. He wasn't really trying to accomplish anything that made any sense as much as they tried. And it's the same thing. Punisher is just going to go and murder wholesale just to, because that's his thing, because he's out fighting for justice. Yeah. So he was great in this, but again, to draw the parallels to the shit that's going on right now, Fisk within the course of the season forms his anti-vigilante squad, which if that didn't scream, ICE to you that we're dealing with in this country right now, you were, even a year ago, you were not paying attention. And even more so, a lot of these folks who in real life display that Punisher skull on the back of their car or whatever and saying, I'm for police. I'm like, you don't know anything about the character. The Punisher wasn't for anybody except for punishing evil. And it doesn't matter who's doing the evil. So that was really sharp. That I thought it was pretty damn sharp. I have a couple of done with outs. I don't know about you. When he crushes the police customer's skull like an eggshell, and it's very graphically displayed on screen, I probably could have done without that, because it was funny. Yeah. I watched the recap. I watched the recap video that I shared in our flow, and of course they cut away from that. And I thought, I think they probably could have done that. That would have been fine. You know what I mean?
I think so. Muse was a little too disturbing.
Yeah.
How he would drain the blood of his victims.
Right.
That was a little too creepy. And, one thing I also don't like is we've seen the swordsman a couple of times.
Right.
He
hasn't
done
Duquesne.
anything. He's just in there for shits and giggles. We need to see him in action.
Right. No, I agree. Yeah, and it's not to say that maybe that right.
He can do this.
Right. It might go in that direction. Yeah. The swordsman being a really important character, and it was, I think, really fitting that we first saw him in Hawkeye, because he was the person who trained Hawkeye in the comics. But yeah, you're right. He's kind of played in the comics, he's not a, rich fop like a funny Bruce Wayne. You know what I mean? He's evil Carney. He's a bad guy of sorts, as I recall from the comics. I think that was
himself, but he had low self-esteem on a team that had gods and robots and the super soldier. He was the first one to die in action, and he wanted to have a noble ending after his ignoble life. But that said, it's we need to see him in action. You can't keep teasing him like this. Give him a sword and let him go to
Right.
town on the bad guy.
Let
Something.
him do it. Well, you just jumped into the next part, is which kind of missed opportunities.
Yeah.
I think they didn't have any other. Now that you talk about it, I agree with you. Didn't necessarily have a ton. The one thing I think they avoided smartly was making this what I think is the biggest struggle of the MCU right now, is turning it into homework. Oh, we're going to pepper this with all these other threads, and we're going to make this character show up who it's really important you see this because in the next movie it's going to be blah, blah, blah. So I didn't feel like any of that really went down quite that way. I feel like we've heard some talk that there might be some connectivity between this and the Spider-Man movie, Spider-Man Brand New Day, that we're going to see this summer. I'm curious about that. But at the same time, I don't want people who aren't, because again, there are definite buckets of, when it comes to these big franchises, people who go see movies and people who go see TV. Now there's a shared space, but I think there's a very separate space of people who don't just watch the shows, but people who don't watch the shows at all, which is why, and I remarked this when I was talking on another podcast earlier today, I think that's really why Thunderbolts failed at the box office, because I thought it was a great flick, but regular people don't want the homework. You know what I mean? And when you fill a movie with nothing but characters from a TV show that nobody's watched, they're not going to be interested, because they're going to look at the poster and say, I don't know any of these people. I'm good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Yeah. Next for season 2. I already kind of touched upon it. It's kind of the TOS/TAS, like in Star Trek. I think they're going to start to kind of pull things in. And the thing that I'm the most psyched about, and we got a trailer maybe a month ago, is Kristen Ritter as Jessica Jones. She is a personal favorite. She's my wife's favorite comic character. That show was, we talked about kind of the best of the Netflix. That was probably a strong number 2 to
Yes.
Daredevil itself. So whatever the hell she does is going to be fucking fantastic, because she's a great actress and it's a great character. So I'm pretty psyched about that. What about you?
I'm psyched about Jessica Jones. I never read Jessica Jones.
Yeah, it was past my time.
Same with me, but I just think she lends the right amount of cynicism,
Yeah,
and bitterness without it being too overwhelming. And that's the problem when you have something so dark. It just can drag you down. You need to have some lightness, and she has some of that too. She has those moments.
right.
So it would be awesome to see her again. I would like to see more of Matt in action as DD.
Right.
We need to do a little bit more of that. And I think they need to bring this story to its conclusion.
Right.
Because I was a little irritated that it ended on a cliffhanger last year and we had to wait a year. And it's like, okay, we got to have a recap video to remind us of what happened.
Absolutely. Like I said, and I mean, I needed not only that recap video, but even in our flow, I have a text layout of the 9 episodes. And hopefully, if you've not watched the show and you're listening to us talk about it and you've not seen the show, we've not ruined it for you. I hope we haven't, because we didn't get granular specifically for the fact that this is a shorter show, and that's we want to kind of whet the appetite of someone for a particular topic, so that you go check it out yourself if you're so inclined. But any surprise cameos that would blow your mind? Anything that you thought, they could, in addition to Jessica Jones, they could also include this character, and I think it would be great.
I would like to see maybe
don't say Iron Fist.
No. Unless they get a new one who doesn't whine. I'd like to see maybe a Spidey cameo, or at least a mention of him in some capacity, because
he got a shot. He actually did get a shout out of some sorts, I think, in this season, just in a TV reporter. It was some offhand comment that Fisk made.
Okay.
It's pretty unlikely that you'll actually see him. Although, it's funny, they could skirt the rules, though I'm sure Sony wouldn't allow it. You wouldn't see Tom Holland, but maybe you saw Spider-Man himself, like in a TV report in the background or something.
Yeah, I could live with that. Maybe the Daily Bugle.
Oh, okay. Which, and that would be something that spun from maybe not even, they didn't do that in the first series because Ben Urich was reported, but he worked for some other
Yeah,
newspaper, I
because the
think.
rights issues were tied up a bit, and
Right. And
but
it was before the unlocking of
yes, yes. Now
Tom.
that it's
It was before Tom Holland Spider-Man because it was 2015.
yes, now that it's under the Disney umbrella, I think they can do that. Maybe not J.K. Simmons, but the Bugle has a lot of characters that can be used. There's a
Right.
lot of police detective characters that were allies to Dee Dee and Spidey. I think
Ooh,
they
Gene
should bring them
DeWolf.
in. Yeah, Jean
Yeah.
DeWolf, and she comes to mind. They had some others as well. I mean, come on, let's use them. Let's use them.
Yeah.
I mean,
They got a lot of
considering doing
characters
the
that,
White
yeah.
Tiger from the '70s, we can get some of these
Right.
other people to satisfy the longtime fans,
Right.
I think.
Right. Well, and don't forget, Daredevil is a confirmed player in the Spider-Man film that's coming out. So for there not to be some kind of connectivity, certainly at the latter half of the season, it would be almost senseless for them not to be like, hey, now I'm gonna go do this thing or that thing. You know what I mean? Or something that's gonna really tease up leading into that story. So there's got to be, yeah, some kind of connection. So
Yeah. And they need
yeah.
to have them without making it overwhelming. Just
Right.
they need to do that.
Absolutely correct. All right. Well, to wrap it up, I'm a big one for the score from 1 to 10. How would you rate this season as an overall on a scale of 10?
I would give it a 7. And
Okay.
my reason is that it dragged at points. I thought it
Yeah.
dragged.
9 episodes is because like the Star Trek ones have 10, but a lot of the Marvel ones have 6.
Mhm.
So this was kind of splitting the difference a little bit. So yeah, you're right. They could have maybe squeezed a bit out.
I wish they would have, if they were going to end this on a cliffhanger, then I think they should have had season 2 come out 6 months after versus 12 months. But Disney didn't ask me.
Yeah, 2 things there. Number one, I mean, there are shows, particularly on Netflix, that'll be many years in between. And then secondly, they're trying to find ways to get people to stay subscribed. But then again, the reverse of your point is that, well, if you put it out 6 months later, then maybe you get them to stick around as opposed to canceling and then signing up again a year later. So it's a mixed bag. I mean, it was funny when I was on the Star Trek cruise recently and in an elevator with Todd Stashwick, who is going to be Paladin in the Vision Quest television series that Marvel's putting out this year. We still don't have a date for that. And that was my kind of tongue-in-cheek question for him. I said, Todd, I'm a big Marvel guy. I know you can't answer this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. When does Vision Quest come out? Who says, in 2026? Okay, thank you very much. The most generic bit of news, but to wrap it up, I was probably an 8 out of 10 for this. It was great action. There were some great set pieces. That big apartment in the dark fight with Dee Dee and Daredevil taking on all the, I'm going to call them the ICE agents because it's close enough for me, was pretty awesome. And I'm still able to suspend the disbelief that anyone without like Wolverine-like powers could survive any of this shit. Because how many times I was just watching that clip in the very first cold open of the Daredevil show, he's fighting Bullseye, and at the end of it, when he throws Bullseye off the roof, he has like 10 knives stuck in his body. Like, come on. And he seems to be dead every other episode. So it's incredible. So I'm good with the blurry line between what they're pulling from the Netflix show and what they like. And what they don't. It's kind of a plus or minus. But yeah, I would say if I shaved a couple points off, it would be because I considered that to be kind of murky and not fully kind of integrated in with the way that maybe this could be. But I'm very excited about this. This comes out again on Disney Plus season 2 on March 24. That's usually a midnight drop, which means you can get up and watch it in the morning before you go to work, which is what I always do. But yeah, any final thoughts before we wrap things up, my friend?
No, not at this point. The thing is, with Dee Dee, just to give some background, the title of this show is Daredevil Born Again. That was based on Frank Miller's seminal storyline where Fisk finds out his identity, destroys every aspect of his life,
Right.
beats him senseless, leaves him for dead, and he makes it back. He has to
Right.
metaphorically resurrect himself, and he becomes a better version of himself. He sets back Fisk, but he doesn't defeat him. So it
Right.
takes him years to get back to becoming an attorney again, to get his reputation back, and to
Right.
topple Fisk.
Right.
And
Gotcha.
that's what I liked about it, is it was the first step on his long road back. The problem, though, with that, Frank Miller created this precedent, set this precedent that everyone who takes over this book, they just gotta destroy his life. And it's amazing how he's not batshit like the
It's
Joker.
because he's got this. He's got the superpowers because he can get loaded up with knives. Same thing on this show. It seems like they got to find a way to make it look like he should absolutely be dead when he's not going to go down.
Yeah, they make him. He should be as batty as the Joker. Yeah, and I'm being punny.
Yeah. Oh boy.
But yeah, some people like Mark Waid added a little bit of light to him. They didn't make it the film noir, hard-boiled thing, made it its own thing. And that was, I think, a good change to the title. But
yeah. Cool.
So,
good deal. All right. Well, again, tune in Disney Plus March 24. And that's our show. Kurt, where do people find you out there if they want to talk about Frank Miller and Daredevil?
On Facebook, I'm Kurt Anthony Krug.
Excellent. And of course, you can find me out there on the socials as at the C3 THETE. My God, I did it again here. I got to lean up because I can never see it on my screen. It's the C3 CEE. I also run all of our Secret Friends Unite across both YouTube and all the main socials where you can catch our interview segments, which we do in video. But you can also catch my little 3-minute coffee chats, or I should say dining room chats, where I just kind of catch up on little short takes of stuff I'm enjoying. But that's it. Thanks for tuning in. I'm going to tell you, as always, that sharing is caring, and keep on trucking.
This podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and podcast services around the galaxy, as well as video on our YouTube channel. You can support Secret Friends Unite by becoming a Patreon member, get bonus programs and more over at patreon.com/secretfriendsunite. Join our Discord community for even more discussions on all things geek. For all the latest updates on Secret Friends Unite, make sure to follow us on Threads at secret.friends.unite and visit secretfriendsunite.com. Find our merchandise at TeePublic and Redbubble. Thanks for listening, and may the Force live long and prosper.